A kurgan is a tumulus, a type of burial mound, a barrow, heaped over a burial chamber, often of wood. The Russian noun, which is already attested in Old East Slavic, is borrowed from an unidentified Turkic language. Compare Modern Turkish kurgan, which means fortress. They are mounds of earth and stones raised over a grave, a graves, associated with its use in Soviet archaeology. The word is now widely used for tumuli in the context of Eastern European and Central Asian archaeology. The earliest kurgans date to the 4th millennium BC in the Caucasus, and are associated with the Indo-Europeans. Kurgans were built in the Neolithic, Bronze, Iron, Antiquity, and Middle Ages, with ancient traditions still active in southern Siberia and Central Asia. Kurgan cultures are divided archaeologically into different subcultures, such as timber grave, pit grave, Scythian, Sarmatian, Hunnish, and Cuman Kipchak. Many place names contain the word kurgan. Origins and spread. The earliest known kurgans are dated to the 4th millennium BC in the Caucasus. Kurgan barrows were characteristic of Bronze Age peoples, and have been found from the Altai Mountains to the Caucasus, Ukraine, Romania, and Bulgaria. Kurgans were used in the Ukrainian and Russian steppes, the use spreading with migration into Eastern, Central, and Northern Europe in the 3rd millennium BC. Scythian Sakha-Siberian monuments. The monuments of these cultures coincide with Scythian Sakha-Siberian monuments. Scythian Sakha-Siberian monuments have common features, and sometimes common genetic roots. Also associated with these spectacular burial mounds of the Patsrik, an ancient people who lived in the Altai Mountains lying in Siberian Russia on the Ukok Plateau, near the borders with China, Kazakhstan and Mongolia. The archaeological site on the Ukok Plateau associated with the Patsrik culture is included in the Golden Mountains of Altai UNESCO World Heritage Site. Scythian Sakha-Siberian classification includes monuments from the 8th to the 3rd century BC. This period is called the Early or Ancient Nomads epoch. Hunnic monuments date from the 3rd century BC to the 6th century AD, and other Turkic ones from the 6th century AD to the 13th century AD, leading up to the Mongolian epoch. Cultural influence. The tradition of kurgan burials was adopted by some neighboring peoples who did not have such a tradition. Various Thracian kings and chieftains were buried in elaborate mound tombs found in modern Bulgaria. Philip II of Macedon, the father of Alexander the Great, was buried in a magnificent kurgan in present Greece, and Midas, a king of ancient Phrygia, was buried in a kurgan near his ancient capital of Gordion. Usage. Kurgan hypothesis. The kurgan hypothesis postulates that the Proto-Indo-Europeans were the bearers of the kurgan culture of the Black Sea in the Caucasus and west of the Urals. The hypothesis was introduced by Maria Gimbutas in 1956, combining kurgan archaeology with linguistics to locate the origins of the Proto-Indo-European speaking peoples. She tentatively named the culture kurgan after the distinctive burial mounds and traced its diffusion into Europe. This hypothesis has had a significant impact on Indo-European studies. Those scholars who follow Gimbutas identify kurgan culture as reflecting an early Indo-European ethnicity, which existed in the steppes and southeastern Europe from the 5th to 3rd millennia BC. In kurgan cultures, most of the burials were in kurgans, either clan kurgans or individual ones. Most prominent leaders were buried in individual kurgans, now called royal kurgans, more elaborate than clan kurgans and containing grave goods. The elite examples have attracted the greatest attention and publicity. Architecture. architecture. Burial mounds are complex structures with internal chambers. Within the burial chamber at the heart of the kurgan, elite individuals were buried with grave goods and sacrificial offerings, sometimes including horses and chariots. The structures of the earlier Neolithic period from the 4th to the 3rd millenniums BC, and Bronze Age until the 1st millennium BC, display continuity of the archaic forming methods. They were inspired by common ritual mythological ideas, common components in all periods. The development of the kurgan structure tradition in the various ethno-cultural zones is revealed by common components or typical features in the construction of the monuments. They include, depending on the combination of these elements, each historical and cultural nomadic zone has certain architectural distinctions. Pre-Scythian Sakha-Siberian kurgans in the Bronze Age kurgans were built with stone reinforcements. Some of them are believed to be Scythian burials with built-up soil and embankments reinforced with stone. Pre-Scythian Sakha-Siberian kurgans were surface kurgans. Underground wooden or stone tombs were constructed on the surface or underground and then covered with a kurgan. The kurgans of bronze culture across Europe and Asia were similar to housing. The methods of house construction were applied to the construction of the tombs. Kurgan aksu, orly with a tomb covered by a pyramidal timber roof under a kurgan, has space surrounded by double walls serving as a bypass corridor. This design has analogies with Bagazi, Sangwar, Bagazar, and Dandibe kurgans. These building traditions survived into the early Middle Ages to the 8th–10th centuries AD. The Bronze Pre-Scythian Sakha-Siberian culture developed in close similarity with the cultures of Yenisei, Altai, Kazakhstan, southern and southeast Amur regions. In the 2nd millennium BC appeared so-called kurgans maidens. On a prepared platform were installed earthen images of a swan, a turtle, a snake, or other image with and without burials. Similar structures have been found in Ukraine, India, and South America. Some kurgans had facing a tiling. One tomb in Ukraine has 29 large limestone slabs set on end in a circle underground. They were decorated with carved geometrical ornamentation of rhombuses, triangles, crosses, and on one slab, figures of people. Another example has an earthen kurgan under a wooden cone of thick logs topped by an ornamented cornice up to 2 meters in height. Scythian Sakha-Siberian kurgans. The Scythian Sakha-Siberian kurgans in the early Iron Age are notable for the grandiose mounds throughout the Eurasian continent. The base diameters of the kurgans reach 500 meters. In Siberia of the settled Tagar culture in neighboring China they reach 5,000 meters. Kurgans could be extremely tall. The Great Salbike kurgan is 22 to 27 meters. The kurgan of the Chinese emperor is over 100 meters. The presence of such structures in Siberia testifies to a high standard of living and a developed construction culture of the nomads. Gender. Females were buried in about 20% of graves of the lower and middle Volga River region during the Yamna and Pole-Teuka cultures. 2,000 years later, females dressed as warriors were buried in the same region. David Anthony notes, about 20% of Scythian Sarmatian warrior graves on the Lower Don and Lower Volga contained females dressed for battle as if they were men, a phenomenon that probably inspired the Greek tales about the Amazons. A near-equal ratio of male to female graves was found in the eastern Menij steppes and Kubanez-Ov steppes during the Yamna culture. In Ukraine, the ratio was intermediate between the other two regions. Archaeological remains. The most obvious archaeological remains associated with the Scythians of the great burial mounds, some over 20 meters high, which dot the Ukrainian and Russian steppe belts and extend in great chains for many kilometers along ridges and watersheds. For them much has been learned about Scythian life and art. Excavated kurgan. Some excavated kurgans include the Ipatovo kurgan, revealed a long sequence of burials from the Makop culture c. 4000 BC down to the burial of a Sarmatian princess of the 3rd century BC, excavated 1998-99. Kurgan 4 at Kutuluk near Samara, Russia, dated to c. 24th century BC, contains the skeleton of a man estimated to have been 35 to 40 years old and about 152 centimeters tall. Resting on the skeleton's bent left elbow was a copper object 65 centimeters long with a blade of a diamond-shaped cross-section and sharp edges, but no point, and a handle originally probably wrapped in leather. No similar object is known from Bronze Age Eurasian steppe cultures. The Makop kurgan dates to the 3rd millennium BC. The Novovelichkovskaya kurgan of c. 2000 BC on the Ponura River, Krasnodar region, southern Russia, contains the remains of 11 people, including an embracing couple, buried with bronze tools, stone carvings, jewelry, and ceramic vessels decorated with red ochre. The tomb is associated with the Novotatorovka culture or nomads. The Kostromskaya kurgan of the 7th century BC produced a famous Scythian gold stag, next to the iron shield it decorated. Apart from the principal male body with his accoutrements, the burial included 13 humans with no adornment above him, and around the edges of the burial 22 horses were buried in pairs. It was excavated by N.I. Veselovsky in 1897. The Issyk kurgan in southern Kazakhstan contains a skeleton, possibly female, c. 4th century BC, with an inscribed silver cup, gold ornaments, Scythian animal art objects and headdress reminiscent of Kazakh bridal hats, discovered in 1969. Kurgan 11 of the Barrow Cemetery, in the Bakhtama River Valley of Kazakhstan, contains a tomb of c. 300 BC, with a dozen sacrificed horses preserved with their skin, hair, harnesses, and saddles intact, buried side by side on a bed of birch bark next to a funeral chamber containing the pillaged burial of 2 Scythian nobles, excavated in 1998. The Ryzanovka kurgan, a 10 meters high kurgan 125 kilometers south of Kiev, Ukraine, containing the tomb of a Scythian chieftain, 3rd century BC, was excavated in 1996. The Soloka kurgan in the Zaporizhzhia Oblast of Ukraine, Scythian, dates to the early 4th century BC. Mamygora kurgan on the banks of Kakauka Reservoir southwest of Enerhodar, known as one of the biggest tumulus in Europe. The height of the kurgan is 80 meters. Here were found remains of people from Bronze Age, Scythians, Sarmatians, Cimmerians and Nogai people. The Thracian tomb of Kazanlak near the town of Kazanlak in central Bulgaria is a Thracian kurgan of c. the 4th century BC. The Alexandrovo kurgan is a Thracian kurgan of c. the 4th century BC. The Thracian tomb of Sveshtari, Bulgaria, is a Thracian kurgan of c. the 3rd century BC. The Haga kurgan, located on the outskirts of Uppsala, Sweden, is a large Nordic Bronze Age kurgan from c. 1000 BC. The Pereshchapina kurgan is a burial memorial of the great Bulgaria Khan Kubrat from c. AD 660. Noin Ulo kurgan, located by the Selenga River in the northern Mongolia hills north of Ulaanbaatar, is the tomb of Uchjulu Chanai, head of the Hun Confederation. Kurgans in Poland. Kurgan building has a long history in Poland. The Polish word for kurgan is kopisa kurhin. Some excavated kurgans in Poland. Burial mounds of the unidentified culture include 14 kurgans dated to 2000 to 1800 BC. Krasnik Neolithic kurhans, tombs at Plesnik Trawiasta Buchina, hundreds of stone kurhans dated to 1200 to 1000 BC. Skalbmirs has kurgans dated 4000 BC. Zambrau, mounds at Georgisa were described by Bishop Nankerus in 1322. Kurgan mounds dated to the Neolithic or Bronze Age included a burial of an elderly person, probably male. Some weapons and pottery fragments were also found in the tomb. Near Sieradz, a tomb dated to the Trojanic culture of c. 1500 BC contains a man and woman buried together. A kurgan burial site at Lubna Jakasi and a kurgan cremation near Gusharau are examples of Trojanic culture of c. 1500 BC. The Kraków mound is located in Kraków. Legend says it is the burial place of Krakus, founder of the city. Wanda Mound, burial place of the daughter of Krakus, is located in Kraków. Piligno near Maragowo, excavated in 1988, is an example of West Baltic Kurgan culture. In Belchatau there is a pagan temple built upon a kurgan. Dating of this structure awaited results of carbon-14 tests in 2001. The mound, called kopisa Przemysl, is triangular in shape, 10 meters in length, and pointing east. In 1869, T. Ebrawski found bones and ancient coins. In 1958, Akanis found skulls and bones and medieval ceramics. A structure called Templum S. Leonardi was constructed around 1534 on top of the mound. It was destroyed in World War II. Kopisa was erected in the 14th century by Casimir III of Poland for his deceased wife. Kopisa Vladislav III of Poland was buried after 1444 in Varna. Image. Varna Memorial. JPEG. Kosciuszko Mound in Kraków was completed in November 1823 as a memorial to Tadeusz Kosciuszko. The Union of Lublin Mound was completed in Lviv in 1980. Artificial mound in modern-day Ukraine. A mound of immortality was constructed to honor poet Adam Mickiewicz in 1898. Kopisa Volhynia commemorates the 250th anniversary of the passage of the Polish Hussars through the city of Piekarzyce under John III Sobieski. It was completed in 1937. Pilsudski's mound in Kraków honors Polish general and politician Józef Pilsudski. Gallery.